This episode is brought to you by DistroKid. Hey, have you heard? I'm coming back to give guided tours at the Punk Rock Museum in Las Vegas, Friday, May 2nd, Saturday, May 3rd, and Sunday, May 4th. 2 tours each day, one at 12:30 p.m. and one at 4 p.m. Get your tickets now at thepunkrockmuseum.com. The Punk Rock Museum, where you can expect the unexpected. Like the time I saw Fletcher from Pennywise and Noodles from The Offspring randomly hanging out on a Tuesday afternoon. Or Flea from Red Hot Chili Peppers having a casual stroll through. Or the time myself and a group walked around the corner to find Fat Mike grilling a married couple about their, never mind. Join me Cinco de Mayo weekend, May 2nd, 3rd, and 4th, as I guide you through 5 decades of punk rock memorabilia, flyers, musical instruments, stage gear, outfits, literature, and so much more. Tickets available now at thepunkrockmuseum.com. Hey everyone, today we bring you another episode of an artist that is sadly no longer with us. That person being artist Leon Ivy Jr., the American rapper better known by his stage name, Coolio. Producer and co-host Chris Fafalios and myself take a deep dive into the lyrical interpretation and musical composition behind Coolio's massive 1995 smash hit, Gangsta's Paradise, taken from the album of the same name. It's hard to believe this song is 30 years old. Released on Coolio's 32nd birthday, this track is a mastery of storytelling within the verses, mixed with the sweet hook of a poppy chorus. The music for Gangsta's Paradise was an interpolation of Stevie Wonder's 1976 song, Pastime Paradise. Mashups between different artists' songs weren't quite the thing they are today back in the 90s. And it turns out that Stevie Wonder loved Coolio's version, although he did have a stipulation about the lyrics. To find out what that was, you're just gonna have to stick around and get loked with us. This is a fun one.
Hey, have you heard? Chris DeMakes a podcast. Hey, have you heard? Chris DeMakes a podcast. Hey, have you heard? Chris DeMakes a podcast. Hey, have you heard? Chris DeMakes a podcast.
Well, hey, Chris, how's it going? We're going to get into some cool 90s stuff today.
For sure. And Chris, I thought that today's subject was appropriate for 2 reasons. We do a lot of artists that are no longer with us episodes, and that applies to this song and artist today. And also, we're marking the 30-year anniversary of this song, the biggest song of 1995, Coolio's Gangsta's Paradise.
That's right, and there is a lot to unpack here. You've been sending me notes for the last 5 years. You sent me 11 pages of notes on this. Thank you very much for doing that as the trusted producer of the show. But there's a lot here, a lot that I didn't know.
Yeah. First thing that I got to get out of the way, brag about a little bit, is that Coolio, real name Artis Leon Ivy Jr., was born on August 1st of 1963 in Monessen, Pennsylvania, which, Chris, is where I'm from. It's about 40 minutes south of Pittsburgh. Now, a lot will argue I did go to Bell Vernon High School because of the way the property lines were mapped out, but I could have walked to Monessen High School from where I grew up. It's just the way it worked out.
One of those situations. Okay.
Yeah, but Monessen was where I grew up, and there's a lot of claims to fame in Monessen, one being former heavyweight champion Michael Moore was from Monessen, and Academy Award-winning actress Frances McDormand is originally from Monessen. But not a lot of talk about Coolio being from Monessen. I guess it's because he was only there from like 1963 to 1971 or so. He was only lived there till he was 8 years old.
Okay. I was going to ask, what is Monessen, PA known for besides Chris Fafalios and Coolio? And I guess Michael Moore, that's about it, right?
Yeah, it was a factory town. It was a big booming factory town in like whatever the 50s and 60s. Then it became a place that really died off after the factories closed, which that's a little bit of a part of Coolio's story here is his mother was a factory worker who then divorced his father, who was a carpenter, and they moved all the way to Compton, California when Coolio was 8.
Makes you wonder why they chose Compton. Did they work or something out there, or they had relatives out there? Because that's a pretty big jump from Monessen all the way out to Compton, California.
Yeah, why go 40 some hours away to Compton? I don't know. I couldn't find any information on that. It might be like you said, Chris. It might be family.
Yeah. Guess he started rapping as a teenager. I love this. Earning the nickname Coolio Iglesias.
I would have never guessed that's where it came from.
as a takeoff, of course, of Julio Iglesias, and his nickname was later shortened to Coolio. I tried to look, Chris, for his 1987 first single titled What You Gonna Do. I couldn't find it. I don't know if you did or not.
No, I didn't find it.
Okay.
I mean, I also didn't look for it. So,
okay.
So to be honest, if I can find it, I'll put a clip in.
I wanted to hear where his head was at. And, I've heard other Coolio songs, but obviously this is his standout hit. And this song became so much bigger than him. I think I had mentioned, Chris, that Jesus Jones reminds me of the 90s. Another song that is just so over the head, hits you over the head 90s is Tub Thumping by Chumbawamba. In this case, I mean, every time there's another song that comes along, I'm like, well, wait a second. Gangsta's Paradise. This is right in the middle of the decade, 95. I mean, I hear this song, it takes me right back. And another interesting fact, Coolio was born August 1st, 1963. Exactly 32 years later, this song was released on his 32nd birthday, August 1st of 1995.
Okay, I didn't realize that. Wow, man, that's a good birthday present.
Yeah.
Releasing this song.
Well, I was going to say, this song had some success being in the movie Dangerous Minds. I guess, who was in that movie?
Michelle Pfeiffer.
Yeah, Michelle Pfeiffer was in that flick, and the song became a hit, and then I guess the album became Gangsta's Paradise, and it became the next record. It was undeniable.
He didn't even intend for this song to be on the next album, but then made it the title track of that album. So I think he knew what he had here, and he better strike while the iron's hot.
Well, and we've talked about this before, both on the main show and the after party. There's movies in the 90s that were complete flops, but had huge soundtracks, and vice versa. I mean, the film Dangerous Minds grossed $180 million. You know how much money that is in 1995? And even spawned a short-lived TV series. But, Gangsta's Paradise, that movie was huge. And then the song, I think, even eclipsed the movie, in my opinion.
Well, yeah, the song was huge, but the movie Dangerous Minds, huge movie. And also, not only was it a huge movie, but Michelle Pfeiffer herself was in the music video for the song. I always remember her coming in, walking and facing Coolio, like spinning her chair around and sitting in a backwards chair. And dude, that music video, if you go look it on YouTube, has 1.7 billion plays on YouTube.
Oh, I know. It's absolutely insane. And, this song topped the Hot 100 for 3 weeks, Chris, became the #1 Billboard song for all of 1995, topped the charts in the UK, Ireland, France, Germany, Italy, Sweden. I could go on. Pretty much every country you can name. I mean, and again, the 90s, let's look at like PM Dawn, Set Adrift on Memory Bliss. That was another song that they had taken and crafted into their own. This was really becoming a thing in the 90s. Of course, it was both hip hop and rock music. You had I always get these two confused. Was it the Verve pipe that did the Stone song, or the Verve? Bittersweet Symphony.
Oh, that is the Verve. The Verve pipe is the freshman.
The Verve.
Yeah, the Verve.
Gotcha.
Right.
Okay. But you were seeing that a lot, but I don't think any of those songs had the impact that this did. And, the song for me, I don't really think that I really paid attention to the lyrics back in the day, except for the hook. Mm-hmm. And this was one of those songs. I mean, there's some songs that are just annoying. This song was everywhere. And I guess you could say that, in one breath, this is annoying, but I always loved this song. When it came on, it was just like, I don't know. It's a party, but at the same time, if you listen to the lyrics and what's going on, we'll get to the chorus, backing vocals and whatnot. It's kind of morose.
It's a very serious song. That's why I wanted to ask you, like, what was the appeal of this song that made it the biggest song of 1995? Is it the sort of eeriness of the choir-like backing vocals? I mean, it was definitely catchy, and you're bringing up how songs were sampling other songs. This song samples a Stevie Wonder song, Pastime Paradise.
That's right.
But that song was not a hit for Stevie Wonder. Stevie Wonder had like a lot. I think I marked it down. I think it was like 10 number one hits, 28 top 10 hits, and 63 songs that hit the Hot 100. Pastime Paradise was not released as a single. It was not one of those 63 songs. It was part of his like most critically acclaimed and most famed album, Songs in the Key of Life.
And spending most of their lives living in a pastime paradise. And spending most of their lives living in a pastime paradise. And wasting most of their time glorifying days long.
I don't think people were like, oh, there's that Stevie Wonder song I like. I don't think that was it. I think most people, like me, as a teenager at the time, I didn't know this was a Stevie Wonder sample.
Yeah, I mean, the audience he was appealing to, especially the MTV generation, as you mentioned, this song was getting just blasted over MTV. A couple of them been familiar with Stevie. Again, you mentioned that song was not a hit. So this was young kids of all races getting into this song in the mid 90s. So I don't think so much that the song, Stevie's song, really was like, oh, this is why the song's a hit. I think it had to do with the storytelling. You listed some cool facts here, Chris. The top 10 songs in 95, of course, Gangsta's Paradise is at number 1, but some interesting picks on here too.
Yeah, so it was above 2 and 3 were both TLC songs, Waterfalls and Creep. Those are both huge. Kiss from a Rose by Seal was at number 4, which just recently got a little bump from a Super Bowl commercial where Seal played a seal, an actual animal seal. Boyz II Men's On Bended Knee was the 5th biggest song of 95. Another Night by Real McCoy at number 6. Fantasy by Mariah Carey at 7. Take a Bow from Madonna at number 8. Don't Take It Personal from Monica at 9. And This Is How We Do It from Montel Jordan at number 10, which think about how big that song was and still is.
I would argue that song is as memorable. You know it by the title out of these, equal as Gangsta's Paradise. I mean, that song title in and of itself. I don't recall Another Night by Real McCoy.
How many times do I have to sing this song for you on an episode of the After Party? It's the another night, another dream, but always you. It's like a vision.
That one.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
I feel like I'm always singing that song on the After Party.
Well, here's the thing, is I only know your version, Chris.
Okay.
I need to go back and actually listen to the real one. That's my fault. And the next thing I got to bring up, and this, I do remember this, and I remember a few artists having an issue. I believe Prince didn't want Weird Al to do his stuff.
Right.
And of course, Weird Al covered the song with Amish Paradise, which the video was hilarious.
Yeah.
I thought it was one of Weird Al's best songs, lyrically and story-wise. I guess that Coolio claimed Weird Al had not asked for permission, and I remember this. I remember it was he kind of made a stink. He later apologized to Weird Al and said in 2011, and I quote, "Making an issue out of this wasn't one of my better business decisions." Yeah,
there was always that controversy, and I get it to a certain extent. It is, we're going to get into the song. It is pretty serious subject matter. You're talking about kids killing kids basically in the streets, teenagers or whatever. We're talking about like gang violence and stuff.
Do you remember if there was a edited video for this? Because MTV was being really crazy in the early 90s. They were using the excuse of this has violence or drugs, we're not going to play it. But then you look at something like Coolio, like this slipped past, and there were certainly other songs that if there was enough money, enough politics behind it, they would let it go.
Well, I don't remember anything violent about the video. I mostly remember like Coolio in the dark room sitting face to face with Michelle Pfeiffer. Like, I don't remember any like violent imagery. And Chris, I thought it was pretty interesting that Coolio usually cusses some in his songs, but because he was using the Stevie Wonder sample, this goes to show you like Coolio had the respect for Stevie Wonder to be like, okay, well, I'm not going to swear in this song because Stevie doesn't like that.
Yeah.
And so they didn't have to censor any of the language. And then maybe that's why Coolio felt like, well, couldn't have Weird Al have asked me? I do think that Weird Al claimed that he did ask him, though.
I will say I do think that Coolio was a fan of Stevie Wonder. I don't think that was by accident.
No.
I definitely think he grew up with this record, or his folks did, and it's something that he just, I always say, listening in the back seat of the car when he's driving to Little League games or whatever.
Well, if you were, imagine being a black family in the 70s. This was a huge album. This Stevie Wonder album was a huge album for everybody, let alone if you were black at that time. And this is the biggest black artist in the world playing, black music. And of course, you're going to be influenced by it. I'm sure that any artists, especially hip hop artists and stuff that were growing up in this, he's born in 1963. So he's at the prime time. I think Songs in the Key of Life may have been like 1975 or something like that. So yeah, he's like a preteen or teenager.
It was 1976.
Okay.
When that album was released. And, I went back and listened to the track, Stevie Wonder's song, which I'm familiar with, haven't heard it in a long, long time. It's funny. Listening to that song now, Chris, it doesn't sound like 76. It sounds like it's so ahead of its time, because that just sounds 90s to me. It doesn't sound 70s. Do you get that when you hear Stevie's version?
Well, maybe part of the reason for that, Chris, why it sounds a little bit ahead of its time, is that it was one of the first songs to use a synthesizer to sound like a full string section. And think about like how big of a part of rap music, especially when you think of like the West Coast rap music of the 90s.
Oh,
that was one of the biggest parts of that. So
yeah.
Was it all influenced by Stevie? And probably Parliament,
I can hear
too,
that high-pitched synth, and I can hear the high-pitched synth. I can see the cars at the intersection, with the hydraulics bouncing up and down. This song won Best Rap Video at the VMAs in 1996, and it won Grammy for Best Rap Solo Performance. Of course, we got to talk about Coolio's hair. No, I don't think anybody else had put pipe cleaners in their hair before. It was a pretty interesting thing. And I'm going to brag here. I know you know this, but I got to meet Coolio.
Yeah.
And he was super, super cool. I know we threw a picture of me and Coolio. That was actually from the 2014 AP Awards in Cleveland.
Oh.
And, looking back, I wonder why he was there. And I think I know. In 2014, Falling in Reverse, Ronnie Radke had covered Gangsta's Paradise. And Coolio was featured on the track. And I believe that was in 2014. I think that's the reason he was there. And then about a week, it was like 6 days before he passed, Less Than Jake played Riot Fest in Chicago. And I know I told you this story, and I'm just sitting there in the catering tent, and JR and Matt were like, dude, it's Coolio. I look over, and he was with one of his friends. They went up and perused the buffet, but sorry, Riot Fest. I love your festival. The catering wasn't that great that day. Coolio nor myself grabbed much catering, but sadly, I opened up the news about 6 days later, and he had passed away.
Wow, that close to when he passed, you had just seen him?
Yes, wow. I had just seen him at Riot Fest. He was backstage. I don't necessarily know why he was there. He's a celebrity hanging out. He didn't play that year, but I remember he walked in. He was a heavy cigarette smoker. I remember he was smoking, which I know that was one of the contributing factors to his death at 59 years old. Yeah,
he was also asthmatic, and he was actually a spokesman for like the Asthma Society or something like that. Something like that. He had 10 kids and 5 grandkids. He passed on September 28th, 2022 is when he passed. Mm-hmm. So that's when you saw him at Riot Fest that week before that.
That's correct. Okay. Yeah. it was one of those moments when I saw him, I was like, well, what am I going to say to him? I just asked for a picture in 2014, and here it is, 8 years later, and I really had no connection to Coolio. I left him alone, but kind of wish I would have went and shook his hand and said hello. But let's get into this track, man.
Sure.
Because there's a lot here, and let's talk about that for a second, because I remember having a conversation with my father years ago. My dad was an old rock and roller, and, he was one of those guys that was trying to put their head around rap. Okay. All he's hearing is a beat, and these guys just, and some of them by this point, as we're getting into the super fast rap, and it was almost as hard as listening to some punk bands where you're trying to decipher some of these lyrics and whatnot. And, I got through to my dad when I explained to him that the musical part of this is within the storytelling.
Yeah.
And it's the imagery of the lyrics. And I said, a lot of the things that they're talking about, they're not going to maybe hit us the same way they're going to hit inner city youth listening to this song. And
right.
When I went back and listened and really looked at these lyrics, I was like, man, there's a lot going on here. It's, just like any other style of music, you could say, oh, this is just words thrown down on paper, but some pretty cool stuff here. The song, and not in a bad way, it feels longer than 4 minutes. This feels like a jam that just goes on and on and on, but it's a pretty succinct song.
Yeah, you get into that beat and you take away little elements of it and you add little elements of it, but for the most part, you're just staying in the same feel throughout the whole song. And Chris, I think part of why this song was so huge may have been a couple things that you just said, the storytelling of it. There's a few things here and there that we'll talk about where it's like, what does that mean exactly? But for the most part, you could understand the story here. If you're paying attention to the lyrics, he delivers them in like a clear way where you can hear what he's saying. And keep in mind, this is mid-90s. There's a lot of talk about gang violence. Like that's a thing that whether you're from the inner city and you're experiencing it, or you're some suburban kid that is just fascinated with it, kind of like, it wasn't our fault as kids if we were like interested in it. It was what was on TV and what seemed like, I hate to use the word cool, but when you like rap music and this is what they're rapping about, you're going to think it's cool, right? So I think that it's those elements, the storytelling and the subject matter that.
Oh, well, yeah. This transcended race and all walks of life in the sense that, you'd see kids, I can see it now. Close my eyes and just see the bag. Could be a white kid in the baggy, super baggy jeans and the 2X shirt, smoking a blunt and it would hit him, that kid as well. Like you said, it was an element of cool, or what kids thought were cool. Teenagers.
Yeah. And there was this so you add those two things, and then like we're talking about the actual music of the song, there's something hypnotic about it. There's something, I want to use the word eerie again. I don't know if that's the right word, but it's sort of like very serious sounding, like some shit's about to go down,
Yeah, and in the chorus, which we'll get into, those backing vocals are haunting. I don't know if you get this, but I almost get, and I never got this before until I really got it under the microscope here. It's got kind of almost like a Halloween vibe.
Dude, it's so funny you say that.
Do you get that too?
I was just about to say that it feels like a horror movie a little bit. Because think about, we're going to get into it, but the first line of the song is, as I walk through the valley of the shadow of death. Yeah. So maybe not only do you have the storytelling, you have the, gang violence element, the subject matter in the story, but you also have, what else are people fascinated by? Horror movies and things like that. So you have all these elements equating to this like thing that people just can't deny.
Yeah, and I can't recall, Chris, if he had any religious upbringing, but that's obviously directly from the Bible. As I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, we're going to jump into those lyrics in a second. But
he did, Chris, by the way. As a teenager, he got bad into drugs. He got into some trouble and stuff. So then he went and stayed with his dad, where he whatever, gave credit to Christianity for helping him through his addiction issues and stuff. So I do think that played a little part into his whatever his background as well.
Sure. Well, that definitely makes sense. The song, again, is 4 minutes long, and it starts 2 times through the tension-building string line, along with hi-hat and single kicks on the one of each measure. There's also a little bit of wood block. I can't tell, Chris, either if that's a synth wood block or an actual wood block. It is hard to tell what it is. And then we get a snare hit with reverse reverb that launches us into verse 1 as the full beat of the song is now in.
As I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I take a look at my life and realize there's nothing left. Cause I've been blasting and laughing so long that even my mama thinks that my mind is gone. But I ain't never crossed a man that didn't deserve it. Me be treated like a punk, you know that's unheard of. You better watch how you're talking and where you're walking, or you and your homies might be lined in chalk. I really hate the trip, but I gotta low. As they croak, I see myself in the pistol smoke. Fool, I'm the kind of G the little homies wanna be like, on my knees in the night, saying prayers in the street light.
And Chris, these first 3 stanzas of lyrics, I'm going to hand it over to you to read the lyrics, this one for us.
All right, I can do that.
All right.
As I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I take a look at my life and realize there's nothing left. Chris, I got to interrupt myself here. I cannot hear this song and not think, as I walk through the valley where I harvest my grain, I take a look at my wife and realize she's very plain. I cannot read those lyrics and not think about that. I hate to interrupt the lyrics already, but I just think that is the funniest parody lyric ever. Look, I'm not trying to keep talking about Weird Al, but like, I'll go back to the real lyrics now, but I can't not think about that.
And Chris, I can't think of a better time than to hear that clip right now.
As I walk through the valley where I harvest my grain, I take a look at my wife and realize she's very plain. But that's just perfect for an Amish like me. You know I shun fancy things like electricity. At 4:30 in the morning, I'm milking cows.
Now that we got that out of the way, Chris, I'll tell you what, just back up. Let's start the whole thing over.
Okay. As I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I take a look at my life and realize there's nothing left. Because I've been blasting and laughing so long that even my mama thinks that my mind is gone. But I ain't never crossed a man that didn't deserve it. Maybe treated like a punk, you know that's unheard of. You better watch how you talking and where you walking, or you and your homies might be lined in chalk. I really hate the trip, but I gotta loke. As they croak, I see myself in the pistol smoke. Fool, I'm the kind of G the little homies want to be like. On my knees in the night, saying prayers in the streetlight.
And that's an interesting lyric right there. On my knees at night, I'm the kind of G the little homies want to be like. That's an interesting lyric, because I don't picture gangsters getting down on their knees and saying their prayers, know, and that might be stereotypical, but it just doesn't seem like those two go together. But that's an interesting lyric.
Well, it's interesting too, because he's saying I'm the kind of G the little homies want to be like. Well, you will notice a lot of Crip terminology in this song.
Right.
And when Coolio was younger, he was a member of what was called the Baby Crips. So he was like 12 years old and getting accustomed to that life already. 12 years old. That's so young to be involved in like a gang lifestyle. But so he, from his own experience, knows looking up to older gang members. And then as far as just because you're part of a gang, I mean, I think you could still say your prayers, or they're talking about whether you're literally saying prayers or not. Your version of church is the streets. You're under the street light and saying prayers that you don't die tonight, right?
And of course he's not here to talk to us about this. That's why we're taking it upon ourselves to go through this song. But I wonder, was this a first take? Was this labored over? How much was actually put in? Because we've heard it a million times. This song was written in 2 minutes. And what made him get the idea to meld the Stevie Wonder bed track with this? What, it just makes you wonder how it all comes together.
I know the answer to that, actually. He said that he came up with he freestyled the first couple of lines, and then the rest of the lyrics came all in one sitting. So this song did happen pretty fast. But then he later claimed that the song came from a source outside himself. We've heard people say this before, like he channeled this song. He said it wanted
a vessel.
Yeah, he wanted it to be born. It wanted to come to life, and it chose him as the vessel. Hey, everybody, we got a lot more Coolio to talk after a few words from our sponsors.
Hey, guitar lovers, what if I told you that this fall you could escape to the Catskills and spend 4 days learning from the greatest Telecaster players on the planet? Introducing Masters of the Telecaster, happening September 29th through October 3rd at the beautiful Full Moon Resort in Big Indian, New York, just 2.5 hours from New York City. You'll get up close and personal with guitar legends like Guthrie Trapp, Larry Campbell, G.E. Smith, Carolyn Wonderland, Cindy Cash Dollar, and many more. These icons have played with everyone from Bob Dylan and Willie Nelson to Norah Jones and Mick Jagger. It's an all-inclusive, once-in-a-lifetime music vacation featuring world-class instruction, gourmet meals, gorgeous accommodations, and jam sessions in the heart of the Catskills. And no, you don't need to own a Telecaster to come. All skill levels are welcome, and scholarships are available through Music Masters Collective. Space is extremely limited, so grab your spot now. mastersoftetelecaster.org/the500. Once again, that's mastersoftetelecaster.org/the500. I'll see you there. I might go.
Looking to elevate your music career? DistroKid is a digital music distribution service that enables musicians to distribute their music to online stores and streaming platforms such as Spotify, Apple Music, YouTube Music, Amazon, Tidal, and many more. DistroKid collects earnings and payments, sending them to you, the artist. With DistroKid, artists unlock a world of possibilities. From easily paying collaborators with splits, to securing your music with DistroLock, DistroKid covers all bases. Plus, you can promote your releases with Hyperfollow and create eye-catching visuals with a Spotify Canvas generator, all for free. But that's not all. Introducing the DistroKid app, now available on iOS and Android. Artists can manage their releases, view streaming stats, and withdraw earnings, all from the palm of their hand. And for those looking to perfect their sound, check out Mixia. With its simple interface and customizable mastering options, artists can make their music sound polished and professional within minutes. And don't forget about Instant Share, DistroKid's newest feature. Share large files securely with collaborators, producers, and more, ensuring your music streams at the highest quality. Ready to take your music to the next level? Download the DistroKid app and explore their suite of tools today. Plus, listeners can enjoy 30% off their first year by visiting distrokid.com/VIP/DeMakes. That's distrokid.com/VIP/DeMakes. Get your saddest songs together and get ready for a decidedly not sad time at Sad Song Summer Camp, July 15th through the 18th at Full Moon Resort in the Catskills. Join the Milk Carton Kids, Joe Henry, Paper Wings, and more for an unforgettable musical experience just 2.5 hours from New York City. Whether you're a songwriter or a fan, this all-inclusive retreat offers immersive classes, performances, and the chance to step beyond backstage. Every participant gets hands-on time with the artists to fine-tune their songwriting, plus immersive classes and evening performances in a stunning mountain setting. Spots are extremely limited. Learn more and register now at www.sadsongsummercamp.com/DeMakes.
When you think about businesses that are selling through the roof like Skims or Allbirds, sure, you think about a great product, a cool brand, and great marketing. But an often overlooked secret is actually the businesses behind the business, making selling and for shoppers buying simple. For millions of businesses, that business is Shopify. It's home of ShopPay, the #1 checkout in the world. You can use it to boost conversions up to 50%, meaning way less carts going abandoned and way more sales going through to checkout. Upgrade your business and get the same checkout Allbirds uses. Sign up for your $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/income, all lowercase. Go to shopify.com/income to upgrade your selling today. Shopify.com/income.
When you have high standards and fancy all the fancy things, like a Dior saddlebag or that diamond tennis bracelet, you go to eBay. There, you'll find new loves that will never disappoint. Expertly authenticated. Whether it's that vintage pearl necklace or brand new ruby earrings, a Prada crossbody bag, or classic watches like that Rolex Oyster or that Cartier tank. On eBay, there are no limits to your high standards. Yeah, eBay. The place for new, pre-loved, vintage, and rare fashion. eBay. Things people love.
This episode is brought to you by State Farm. You might say all kinds of stuff when things go wrong, but these are the words you really need to remember. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there. They've got options to fit your unique insurance needs, meaning you can talk to your agent to choose the coverage you need. Have coverage options to protect the things you value most. File a claim right on the State Farm mobile app and even reach a real person when you need to talk to someone. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there.
This episode is brought to you by Peloton. Everyone has a reason to change. Growing old, heartbreak, a fresh start. Whatever it may be, Peloton is here to get you through life's biggest moments with workouts that challenge and motivation that keeps you coming back. Peloton's Tread and all-access membership helps you set your targets, track your progress, and get stronger, making your fitness goals a reality. Find your push. Find your power. Peloton. Visit onepeloton.com.
PayPal lets you pay all your pals, like your graduation gifters.
Who's paying for the mattress topper?
You mean the beanbag chair?
Aren't we getting a mini fridge?
Can we create a pool on PayPal? It lets us collect the money before we buy.
Oh, yes, that's smart.
Glad we can agree on something.
Easily pool, split, and send money with PayPal. Get started in the PayPal app. A PayPal account is required to send and receive money. A balance account is required to create a pool.
Well, I remember yesteryear like it was yesterday. Running through the streets of Monessen, PA. I take you through my...
And now, back to the show. Chris, I also want to talk about that first line of the song, as I walk through the, what is it? As I walk through the valley of the shadow of death. That is from Psalm 23:4. This is often referred to as the shepherd's psalm in the Bible. And it portrays God as the good shepherd, feeding and leading his herd. So that struck cool. I mean, I think that even before this song, in my life, this song made that a very famous line. But I think for people that go to church and stuff, that is like a famous line from the Bible.
Well, the other thing here was loke is something that the Crips would call each other, a Crip term meaning crazy, wild, or insane. Of course, there was Tone Loc. He had an album called Loked After Dark. I didn't know where that came from, but now it makes sense.
I think it's just like short for loco.
Yeah, that's a so that album would have been Crazy After Dark, and I think that applies to a lot of us. We get into the refrain of the song next, which is sung by LV, and I don't really know. I guess that he was a collaborator along with Coolio with this track, but it's funny when I heard this song, and again, never thought about this before, but you know, a lot of the I'll call them emo bands. They would have the two singers. They'd have the verse guy and the chorus guy. A lot of times they'd be the clean singer and the dirty singer. And here you got, you know, Coolio throwing down this kind of dirty street rap, and then you get this uplifting almost kind of sing-songy lyric, the chorus. Been spending most of their lives living in a gangster's paradise. been spending most of their lives living in a gangsta's paradise. And then it changes to keep spending most our lives living in a gangsta's paradise. Keep spending most our lives living in a gangsta's paradise. And Chris, what's a gangsta's paradise? Is that a tongue-in-cheek reference? Like, this isn't really paradise. It's you're watching your back out here. It's tumultuous. It's a lot of danger and turmoil.
Interesting. I didn't think about this at all till you said. I can't believe I didn't think about this till right now till you said this. What is a gangsta's paradise? I think when you're thinking about something religious, paradise is heaven, right? You're going to go to heaven. What is a gangsta's paradise? Is that a world where you're like top dog? You know, you're the top guy. Nobody's messing with you, and you get to. I don't know. That's such an interesting thought. What does he mean by gangsta's paradise?
I think that's the brilliance with this. Again, the gangsta's paradise, whether you're out there and you're struggling, you don't got a nickel in your pocket. You're living the paradise out there. It's, some people do choose to live that lifestyle. Other people live the lifestyle and they got a wallet full of Benjamins and a trunk full of dope.
Well, here's a thought that I just had. What if they mean that, like, he's rapping about the realities of living in this world from, am I going to live or die today? Am I going to have to take someone else's life today? But the gangsta's paradise is the glamorization of it.
Oh, yeah.
How it's so glamorized on MTV and stuff. Everyone thinks it's this paradise. It's this cool thing. But the reality of it is it's a life or death situation, and it's depressing.
Mm-hmm. Well, and a lot of these guys, too, everyone from MC Hammer, and he certainly wasn't a gangster rapper, but, a lot of their friends that they grew up with, they got jealous of that success. They were no longer a gangster that lived local. They became this thing, and as we know with the East Coast West Coast feuds, there was a lot of craziness going on. There's a choir here in the chorus, backing vocals that join in with LV. It adds to the mystique and serious feel of the song. And you had written, Chris, in your notes that it makes you think of what you'd hear in church or at a funeral, and it definitely does. And I don't know if you knew or went back, but the Stevie Wonder version, although not as morose and haunting as what we have here in Gangsta's Paradise, but it's only like 3 voices. It sounds like women. It might be Stevie in high falsetto. They're doing a version of this, but again, it's nowhere near the choir feel, and this does feel more like a Baptist funeral or something.
Yeah, it does feel like a funeral. It's such a serious feel, and I think there's intention to that. I think it's part of the appeal of this song is like, it's such serious subject matter, and it's as serious as a funeral, and it is interesting too, Chris, that before this, when you think about Coolio's, do you remember some of Coolio's hits before this? He had, Fantastic Voyage, Come Along and Ride on the Fantastic. He had like these fun, upbeat, almost like funny songs. This was such a different type of song for him.
It was, but I can picture it now, walking by dance clubs in downtown Gainesville and seeing, 500 people just losing their minds and not really listening to lyrical content. We've talked about that. They're listening to the beat, and at that moment they're so drunk that they're one of the gangsters in paradise, probably.
Right.
Once the second verse starts, the synth strings disappear, and now we have the beat with some really killer bass. It breaks down to just the drum beat and vocals on the line. Too much television watching got me chasing dreams.
Look at the situation they got me facing. I can't live a normal life. I was raised by the state, so I gotta be down with the hood team. Too much television watching got me chasing dreams. I'm an educated fool with money on my mind. Got my 10 in my hand and a gleam in my eye. I'm a loped out gangster, set tripping banker, and my homies is down, so don't arouse my anger. Fool, death ain't nothing but a heartbeat away. I'm living life, do or die. What can I say? I'm 23 now, but will I live to see 24? The way things is going, I don't know. Tell me why.
Look at the situation they got me facing. I can't live a normal life. I was raised by the street. So I got to be down with the hood team. Too much television watching got me chasing dreams. I'm an educated fool with money on my mind. Got my 10 in my hand and a gleam in my eye. I'm a loked out gangsta, set trippin' banger, and my homies is down, so don't arouse my anger. Fool, death ain't nothing but a heartbeat away. I'm living life do or die, what can I say? I'm 23 now, but will I live to see 24? The way things is going, I don't know. That's so true. You know, the guys that are out there running in the streets, something happens. Either they end up dead, incarcerated. You know, these guys aren't still running in the streets when they're 45, 50 years, my age. Mm-hmm. You know, it's a young man's game, and saying you don't know if you're going to live to 24. I mean, that's...
It's interesting that he says fool a lot, which, you know, at first instinct, I'm like, does he mean it like in the Mr. T kind of way? Like, fool, you know, I pity
what's up, fool?
Yeah. But he calls himself an educated fool. Is that because in this story he's telling here, because the character, or if he's referring to himself, he's gone through the education system, but he hasn't got much out of it, that the real education was the streets? Or is he just saying fool, like I would say to you, like, what are you talking about, fool? You know, I don't know.
Well, and we don't know either. You know, he came from a middle class area outside of Pittsburgh. So maybe he felt educated. Maybe he was made fun of by the kids when he got to California because he spoke maybe, you know, bigger words or more intellectually. And they were like, who's this educated fool?
Well, I would think that anyone who is a rapper, you have to be skilled with words. You got to be a pretty well-read person. And it is interesting. I did see in my notes, Chris, that as a kid, Coolio loved to hang out at the library. And I wondered if they meant the Monessen library, because I liked to go to the Monessen library when I was a kid. Now, this was after Coolio's time, but something that tied it back together for me. This has nothing to do with the Coolio story, really. But that I remember going to Monessen library, and that's where I would check out Weird Al records. You could check out Weird Al records at the Monessen library, and I remember doing that. But back to the song. He mentions having a 10 in his hand. That's referring to a Mac 10 machine pistol. You would recognize this type of gun if you saw it. He uses the term loke again. Set trip means to represent your gang. If you're throwing up your gang sign or whatever, set trip. And banger, of course, refers to a gangbanger, which is someone who's involved in a violent conflict with rival gangs. Like I mentioned, why all the Crip imagery specifically? Of course, you had the Crips and the Bloods out in L.A., but it was because as a kid as young as 11, Coolio wound up being involved with the Baby Crips, which was a subgroup of the Crips. 11 years old, man. That's so young.
I know, and I often wondered about that, and I'm like, how do you get involved that young? And they just start them out with, hey, you just be the lookout over here. You have a little walkie-talkie, and you tell me if you see any police cruising around. That's how it's, and I'll give you $50 a day or whatever it is. You can't make money at 11 years old, and if you don't have a parent at home or a mom or adult supervision, that's pretty enticing, right?
Well, absolutely. I mean, when you think about these sort of things, if you didn't have someone looking out for you to tell you the difference between right and wrong or not to get involved, then how do you not know to do that? I think there's a lot of people in the world that don't understand that. Like, why would you choose to do that? Well, if that's what you see around you, that's what you're going to get involved in.
I believe that, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, another line in this that I think is pretty interesting, Chris, that I saw people debating online what it means. He says, and my homies is down, so don't arouse my anger, fool. Does this mean that his fellow gang members are down to engage in violence if Coolio asks them to? So it would be best not to provoke him because he has this? Or does it mean that his friends, like several of his friends, have been killed, so now he has like a nihilistic outlook on life? Mm-hmm. So he doesn't give a fuck, basically. So he's prone to explode with violence even if he's slightly provoked. Is that what he means? What does the down mean? That my friends are down to help, or that my friends have been killed?
Yeah, I don't know. That's a good That's a good point. Did you ever see anything? And I looked, I couldn't find anything where other rappers thought he was a fraud, or, you know, he was just some guy from Pennsylvania that moved out to LA and claimed, you know, because there was a lot of that going on. But pre-internet, you couldn't dig these things up. So I remember Vanilla Ice claimed he was from the streets of Miami. He was from Dallas, Texas, you know, and that's an extreme example. But again, when you're writing songs, how much of it is autobiographical? How much of it is, I'm going to write a song about a chicken today? You know, it's nonsense. It means nothing. And you have to wonder here, and I'm not taking a shot at Coolio, but you wonder how much of this is him just writing from a perspective of other rap and stuff he's listening to, or is this the real deal?
Well, I think Vanilla Ice is a bad example. He was obviously a fraud the whole time. But the fact that Coolio was from Compton, you're talking about the hotbed of gang violence of Compton. Right. I mean, this is where NWA is from. This is, you know, and if anyone was going to be critical of him, which I didn't see anything about that either, would be because he was like a silly, kind of funny rapper for a while, and now he has a serious song. But same thing with NWA, man. They had silly, goofy songs. Like, it seems like a lot of rappers, that was a thing where Digital Underground is an example where they had songs that were serious songs, but then you had the Humpty Dance too.
Sure.
So I didn't see Coolio getting any shit for not being like actually a hard ass rapper or something. I think that
no, and I think I brought that up because of his image, not just his previous songs, but you know, he had the hair and he was kind of like this just bigger than life kind of I don't want to say goofy, but definitely didn't seem as hard as Public Enemy or NWA or some of the other bands you know, doing the gangster rap style. After the full verse that I just read, we get a new refrain with a slightly subdued version of the beat.
I don't know. Tell me, why are we so blind to see that the ones we heard are you and me? We've been spending most of our lives living in the gangster's paradise. We've been spending most of our lives living in the gangster's paradise. We keep spending most of our lives living in the gangster's paradise. We keep spending most of our lives living in the gangster's paradise. Power and the money.
Tell me, why are we so blind to see that the ones we hurt are you and me? And then a snare hit from here leads to another full chorus. And you had written in the notes how sick the synth bass is in this chorus. It sits in a pocket that we've talked about this. Sometimes the bass is its own song. Billie Jean comes to mind. You can just isolate the bass track. It's a song in and of itself. And this bass is just groovy in here. It is really amazing, the tone.
Yeah, when I was listening to it, I was like, wow, I never really paid attention to the bass, the synth bass in this song before.
A lot of times you don't listen to what's going on because, again, you're listening to the lyrics. If there's ever a genre of music where I would say the lyrics are more important than the music, it would be hip hop. I think, and definitely in this instance, because you're hanging on to every word here. We get right into this next refrain. It's the same as the first one. It starts with "been spending most of our lives," and the back half goes to "keep spending most of our lives." And then the third verse comes in, Chris. The flow of the beginning of this verse is the catchiest of the song and also makes it one of the most memorable parts lyrically of the song, maybe other than that first line referencing the shadow of the valley of death.
Yeah, I can remember as a kid this being a line that you would rap along to. Power in the money, money in the power, minute after minute, hour after hour. And there's just something about the delivery of that makes it, I don't know, that's one of the standout lines to me of this song.
Power and the money, money and the power, minute after minute, hour after hour. Everybody's running, but half of them ain't looking what's going on in the kitchen. But I don't know what's cooking. They say I got to learn, but nobody's here to teach me. If they can't understand it, how can they reach me? I guess they can't, I guess they won't, I guess they front. That's why I know my life is out of luck, fool.
Power in the money, money in the power. Minute after minute, hour after hour. Everybody's running, but half of them ain't looking. It's going on in the kitchen, but I don't know what's cooking. They say I gotta learn, but nobody's here to teach me. If they can't understand it, how can they reach me? I guess they can't. I guess they won't. I guess they front. That's why I know my life is out of luck, fool.
He sneaks in that fool again in there, right?
Yeah, right. They that they're referring to in this song, it could be teachers, cops, politicians, religious leaders, society in general. They say that Coolio, who is just basically, I feel like Coolio's a representation of all gangbangers in this song. Like he is like the standard person in a gang, needs to learn to lead this legitimate life as a productive and law-abiding citizen. But if they don't understand, if we, the listeners, don't understand the circumstances he was born into, raised in, and still lives in, how can they possibly help him, let alone expect him to do so himself? Dude, I can tell you, still to this day, I think there are people, a lot of times older people, a lot of times people who never had to worry about things like this, that don't understand, like, why would you do that? Why wouldn't you just not do that? Well, if you were raised from the time you were little, that's all you saw, that was your reality, that was your world. You didn't have other options unless you're just, I don't know, so strong-willed or just were lucky enough to have someone come in your life and show you something else. That's what you're going to fall into. And I feel like there's a lot of people in the world that don't understand how easily this happens and how it would easily happen to them as well. I think everyone always thinks like, well, I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't fall into that. Well, you're not in that circumstance.
Yeah, well, there's always the case of people that had bad parents and they turn out good. They're a good egg. But your odds are they're so stacked against you when it's generational.
Yeah.
When you didn't have a father and your biological father that wasn't there for you, he didn't have a biological father that was there for him. So it's, definitely a cycle. And again, that goes outside of race. It could be for anybody. I always say, I think it goes back to the home, your earliest behaviors, when you get your hand slapped by a parent, don't grab that cookie. It's not yours. If you have no one telling you that, and like I said, I'll give the example again, like you're broke. You can't afford video games. There's no food in the fridge. Your mom's in and out, and you got a buddy down the road that's 11 years old, and he's flashing money, and you're going, well, how did you get that?
Right.
All I got to do is stand here and raise my hand when I see the police come around the corner. So again, like you said, if you don't come from something, it's hard to judge it because you don't know if you weren't there and you didn't live it. We come back again to a chorus, and how many times have we talked about, should the chorus have changed? Not in this song. Why would anything be changed about this? Again, it starts with been spending most of their lives living in a gangsta's paradise, and the back half goes to keep spending, which is interesting. I zeroed in on that, just from the been to keep. That's how you've been living, and you're going to keep living. You're going to keep living either because it's good or it's all you know.
That's a good point, man. I've been living my life this way, and I'm going to keep spending my life this way because I don't have another option.
Whether it's good or bad, I'm in this cycle. I'm making money. I'm slinging, doing whatever I'm doing to make it, or I'm broke as a joke. I'm bummed. I'm living in this. I'm scared for my life. And a lot of people, again, something I never had to deal with. You get into these gangs. Some of these gangs, you don't leave.
No.
You leave, you're a dead man.
Right.
And now if you feel scared and you're a marked man, I mean, fear is one of the biggest components of human the human psyche. Fear will drive you to do things you never thought that you could do. And hey, I'm either going to be killed or I have to go off somebody. What are you going to do as a young kid? The refrain here comes back to serve as an outro, but this time with the full beat behind it, and it's repeated twice. And I thought it was interesting. We don't end with that chorus. We end with, tell me why are we so blind to see that the ones we hurt are you and me? Tell me why we are so blind to see that the ones we hurt are you and me. And the song ends 2 times through with an all-out instrumental before ending with the choir vocals only for a full 8 bars. That's killer at the end. It's so good.
That was obvious. I mean, I feel like you and I both would have made that choice too. You have this element that is like, I don't know. I think that the choir vocals are like one of the biggest things that pull you into this song. It seems if they wouldn't have done that, I'd have been banging my head against the wall and breaking this song down, I think, because it makes so much sense. And it almost feels like, man, in the story of the song, having it end with just the choir vocals, it makes me feel like as a listener that the narrator of the song, Coolio in this song, he dies. You know, in the end, this is how this ends. And here's the choir at the funeral at the end. I don't know if that's an even more morbid look at this song, but it's a serious, and I don't know, it's a life or death kind of song. So I think that matches the vibe of the song perfectly.
Does this song, I think I know the answer to this. If I were to play this song for a 16, 17-year-old kid and they had never heard it, do they know it sounds 30 years old? Because to me, I'm not going to say it sounds current. It sounds like the 90s to me because I know when it came from. But, you know, hip hop's interesting, especially around this time, because, you know, it's about the lyrical content and the story that's being told. And if you get lost in that, I don't like go, oh, this song sounds old to me. What do you have to say about that? Do you feel like it's dated?
I think that if a kid, let's say a 12 or 13-year-old kid heard this song today, then I think it would still appeal to them. I think the music would still pull them in. And then I think the storytelling, I know you and I are melody guys, but I think most of the world are lyric people, that I think that they're listening to these lyrics. I think those standout lyrics, like the opening lyric, will pull them in as I walk through I always forget it. I always go to the Weird Al one. As I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I think that pulls somebody in like, ooh, what is this? And I don't know. I think this song's it will live on. I don't see a time where people would be like, oh, this sounds like it's from like an old song or something. I could be wrong, but I think it's timeless.
I tell you, it's first of all, I love doing these episodes because we kind of surmise our best at what we think something is, but we'll never know. Coolio is not here with us, and it's a shame. I was thinking about him this morning before we started recording and thinking about, you know, with everything that's going on with technology, the TikTok, and how things go viral. We saw it with Teenage Dirtbag. I think it was a matter of time before Stranger Things or something with this song went viral, and I wish he would have been able to be here to see it, because this song to me is, I'll use the word timeless. It's a timeless tune.
Yeah, I think so too, and I think it's still... Am I imagining that it's still out there?
I don't think it's gone necessarily, but it hasn't had the resurgence that I think it's a matter of time. I think this song is fit for a resurgence as much as Enter Sandman or a Kate Bush or anybody else that could have a resurgence with a song. It was that big of a tune, but. Man, this was a lot of fun to everybody out there listening. Drop us a note in our Chris DeMakes a Podcast Facebook group and let us know what other artist that's no longer here that you would like us to talk about. And if they wrote a song that's a great hit, we'd love to talk about that. And if you haven't had a chance already, head over to chrisdemakes.com. Chris, what's over there? Lots of exciting stuff, right?
That's our Patreon, where you can instantly get tons of episodes, hundreds of episodes of the After Party, which is a lot of fun. We do a lot of music history stuff. We have a lot of conversations pretty much centered around music. That's kind of what we do. We love music and we like to talk about it, but we have a lot of fun with that. It's a little looser. We stay a little more structured with these main episodes. It's a little looser, but also it allows us, by you signing up for that, it allows us to continue making this show. We love making this show and we depend on your support. You know, we're like you know, when they do the fun drive, the drives for like PBS and stuff, like we're like that, you know?
I never thought of it like that, Chris. That makes it a little more wholesome.
Yeah, we're wholesome over here.
Family entertainment. I absolutely love it. I already mentioned, head over to the Chris Makes a Podcast Facebook group and check out our Instagram page as well. Chris does a lot of work over there. Puts up all the clips of myself and the guests and other cool stuff. I'm sure you'll put up a clip of us because we look so great this morning talking about Coolio. And speaking of Coolio, rest in peace, my friend. I wish you were still here with us. I wish I would have come up and said hello to you at Riot Fest. So next time you see someone you think you should say hello to, definitely go up and shake their hand because it might be the last time you see him. Thanks so much, and we'll see you next week.
I got something brand new